We're back. It's been a long time. So I hope everyone is doing well. And though I've spent some time on Instagram posting a bunch of stuff that has created a lot of nice ruckus from pro Hamas supporters, decided it's time for some real Torah. Now, a lot of people have asked me about learning Tanya. What is it? I've done a whole lot of background videos about why Chassidus, what it is, why it's here, why it exists, and giving you guys lots of different concepts from Tanya without directly referencing it. So for right now, I want to just get into it. All right, so new series. Gonna go Tanya one chapter at a time in order to make this more accessible, easier to listen to, easier to watch. I'm not going to go, verse by verse reading the text, but I'm going to give you the general gist of each chapter. And I would love for you guys to reach out, ask me questions, because there's going to be a lot to clarify here. And comment if you have questions, reach out to me directly. All of you guys are my friends, so you have my number. If not, and you're just someone that I don't know yet, please post it on YouTube or on Instagram, and I will definitely do my best to answer. All right, here goes. Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liadi, Alter Rebbe, founder of Chabad Chassidus, also wrote his own Shulchan Aruch, called Shulchan Aruch Harav. Basically starts this book and calls it Tanya. Why? Because Tanya means we learn something from a Braita. So we learn something from the Mishnah, the Gemara in Maseches Nida, the tractate Nida, and it basically talks about that before a Jew is born, he's administered an oath. Every one of us, before we're born, we have to swear to do something. What is it that we have to swear? It says, be righteous, tehi tzaddik ve'al tehi rasha, be righteous, don't be wicked. And even if the whole world tells you that you're righteous, in your own estimation, regard yourself as if you are wicked. Now, this doesn't really make much sense. Why? Because why would you want to think that you're wicked, right? And on the flip side, it says somewhere else in Maseches Avos, in Pirkei Avos, it says, Tehi al tehi rasha bifnei atzmecha. Don't think of yourself as a wicked person. So it's like, okay, on one hand, you have to swear before you're born into this world that you're going to be righteous and you'll never be wicked, but that you should, in your eyes, consider yourself wicked. And then later, somewhere else, we see this contradicting verse that says, don't be wicked in your own eyes, because that doesn't make any sense. So now, think about that. If you thought of yourself as a rasha, as a wicked person, you'd probably be pretty depressed, because what are you doing here then, right? If you really think of yourself as so terrible, you'll be depressed, and you won't be able to live your life. Forget doing Torah and mitzvahs, you won't even be able to live regular daily life. It'll just be a depressing, very depressing, way to live. And this could lead you to doing averas too, because you're like, well, why is there a point? There's no point in me even trying to do mitzvahs. I'm so terrible, like there's no hope for me, basically. So we have to understand. Now, in the Gemara, and we can source all this stuff later. If you have any questions, let me know. We talk about 5 different types of man. There is a tzaddik, a righteous person who prospers, called a tzaddik v'tovlo, someone who prospers. You have a tzaddik v'ralo, which is a righteous person who doesn't prosper or who suffers, right? Doesn't mean necessarily spiritual or physical, but both. And then we have a rasha v'tovlo, a righteous person a wicked person, who actually prospers in this world. And then a rasha v'ralo, someone who is wicked and suffers. And then there's a fifth type called a Benoni. So we're defining 5 different types of spiritual status that you can have in this world, ranging from a righteous person who prospers, a righteous person who suffers, a wicked person who prospers, a wicked person who suffers, and a Benoni, which is the intermediate man, right? Now, the Gemara explains who is the righteous person who prospers, the tzaddik, or the righteous person who is perfect, literally flawless human being. Flawless. So there's literally no reason for that person to suffer in this world because there's nothing to cleanse him from. All suffering really usually stems from God having to clean us in order to clean us from our spiritual shortcomings, and he's trying to make us pure, and so he gives us suffering in this physical world in order to exist in perfection spiritually. So this perfect tzaddik never has to suffer because he's perfect. There's nothing to cleanse his soul from. Then there's a tzaddik veralo, an incomplete tzaddik. Basically, because he's righteous, but he's a little bit incomplete, what ends up happening is that he has to suffer a little bit in material matters in order to cleanse himself spiritually to become perfect. Now, in the Zohar, it explains that the righteous man who suffers, the imperfect tzaddik, still controls all of his being by his good inclination, meaning the Yetzer Hara, the evil side, really doesn't control him at all. It's just that he still has a Yetzer Hara, it still bothers him, he just never really listens to it. Now, it says that the righteous people are judged or motivated by their good nature. Their think about, you got the angel cartoon on one shoulder and the devil on the other shoulder. The righteous people, the tzaddikim, are always influenced by their angel. Now, the perfect tzaddik doesn't even have the devil on the other side. So he can only listen to the angel telling him to do good things. The incomplete tzaddik has a angel on one side and the little devil on the other side. The devil is so small and his voice is so small that he just never hears him. But he still exists. He's still there. And so both types of righteous people, the tzaddikim, are just motivated by the angel. One has no devil. The other has one, but he's so small and insignificant that he can't even hear him. So the angel always wins. Therefore, Rabbah, who we knew was a big-time righteous person from the time of the Gemara, is literally made a mistake, and he said to himself, I think I'm a Benoni. And we're like, well, what does that even mean? How could you be a Benoni, right? And so what did they say to him? What did Abaye say to him? They're like, wait a second. How could you be a Benoni, right? Like, we're thinking of a Benoni as someone who has like half sins and half merits. Like we're thinking of a scale where it's balanced on both sides. Like you go to heaven, you die, you get there, and God says, okay, are you righteous or are you wicked? Let's total up all the stuff that you've done in your life and see where you are. And that's what we think of as a Benoni. However, if Rabbah mistook himself as a Benoni, then clearly that can't be the definition, right? Because Abaye says to him, wait a second, dude. If you are a Benoni, then what does that make the rest of humanity? We're all Rishaim, we're all wicked people, and that doesn't even make any sense. And furthermore, it says in the Gemara, when it talks about Job, that the pasuk says, God created righteous men and he created wicked men. And that doesn't make any sense because don't we have free will here? How could he create righteous people and how could he create wicked people? He should just create people and then we get to choose based on our actions whether we become righteous or wicked, or whether we're a Benoni, intermediate. So we have a couple things to understand here. A, what really is a Benoni, if Rabbah could mistake himself as being one? And then B, do we really have free will to choose, or does Hashem, God, create righteous people, tzaddikim, and does he create Rashaim, right? Or does he just give us free will? So we have to understand those questions. And at this point, I want to pause here because it's been about 10 minutes. And I think you guys probably have lots of questions. So we will do the second half of this later to explain that. But I just want to establish again that there's 5 spiritual statuses. 2 tzaddikim, 2 Rishaim, 2 righteous people, 2 wicked people, and a Benoni, the intermediate in between. And clearly the intermediate cannot be someone who has half sins and half merits. It has to be higher than that, or else this big tzaddik Rabbah could not have mistaken himself for that. And on top of that, does God actually create wicked people and righteous people, or does he give us free will in order to choose what we become? We'll talk about that in the next one. No fake sponsors this video, because I've been out of commission for so long that no one wants to even fake sponsor. That's how bad these have gotten. But in the next one, which will hopefully be tomorrow, we will talk about the answers to these questions. Let me know if you need any clarification.